This video is an overview of my experience building a 30 by 96 foot high tunnel from a purchased kit. If you're considering building a high tunnel for the first time, especially a large one like this, it is a fairly large project. So hopefully I can give you an idea of what all is involved in the construction, help you decide whether or not you want to build one for yourself. This is not going to be a detailed instructional video, but I will try to share some of the things I learned and some of the things I do differently the next time. My name is Nick, and along with my wife Stephanie and our family, we own and operate this market garden. We believe it's pretty important to have more local, small-scale, responsible food producers, and a lot of people have helped us out over the years. So we hope this video will pass on some of our experience and hopefully help somebody else build or improve on their farm. This is the spot that we chose to build our high tunnel, running in a north-south orientation. In the bottom right-hand corner, you can see the piping for the high tunnel frame laying on the ground. That banded material was way too heavy to move around by hand, so for us, having the Bobcat to move it around was a really valuable tool. The first step of your construction is going to be to accurately measure and square up your building footprint, and then mark on the ground where to dig holes for your sidewall posts. For this high tunnel, that was 34 holes to dig. So again, the Bobcat with the auger attachment was a great tool to have for this project. The instructions suggested either digging holes with the auger like I did or manually pounding the posts into the ground. Since I knew I wanted my posts set in concrete, and honestly the idea of pounding all those posts in the ground sounded pretty horrible, I figured that augering would be the best option. In hindsight, I think I would have augered the holes less deep and then pounded the posts in that last few inches. And I think this would have made leveling the tops of the posts a lot easier. For each one of the sidewall posts, I drilled a hole at the bottom of the pipe and put in a piece of rebar to help anchor those posts down into the concrete. I'll point out here that moving those 10-foot posts around and then drilling through each one of them was a fairly physically demanding job, and quite frankly, it sucked a little bit. The next step was to get the posts in the ground, level them horizontally, and line them up vertically, and then cement them. I used string lines to align all the posts, but running string that distance didn't work very well. So I ended up doing the corner posts first, and then posts somewhere in the middle. And this gave me a more solid place to tie the string lines and run them a shorter distance. Now it was finally time to start building the hoops and their trusses. This kit came with a whole lot of hardware and material, so I took this time to lay everything out and get everything organized for building the trusses. The instructions that came with the kit were very thorough and they didn't miss a step, but they were written instruction as opposed to drawings or schematics, so it made interpreting them just a little bit difficult. I ended up reading through the instructions several times and coming up with my own drawings and notes just to make the whole process a little bit easier on myself. You will need a pretty large flat area to build the hoops, and luckily for me, our garden center building is right next to the site where we're building our high tunnel, so I was able to build the hoops inside of this building. For my hoops, I ordered every other one as a W truss, which was a heavier duty, stronger truss, and in hindsight, I wish I would have ordered them all as W trusses. Not only for that extra added support, but I think it would have made the building process more consistent, and then in the end, the ceiling of my high tunnel would also be more consistent since all of the trusses up above would be the same. If you notice all of the masking tape marks on the floor, after I measured where all of the clamps and connecting hardware went on a truss, I would mark the floor. And that way I wouldn't have to measure each subsequent hoop. And it also helped to make all 17 of the trusses as identical and consistent as possible. Probably the most important tool for this whole job was the cordless impact driver. I actually bought another one so that I would have two for the project, and I highly recommend this. I knew I was going to need a lot of help to raise those hoops up onto the sidewall posts, So I decided to color code each one of the hoops and each one of the sidewall posts. That way the people helping me would know which hoop went with which sidewall post, and there would not be any room for confusion. There are a lot of clamps that go on the sidewall posts and the hoops for attaching bracing. I found out it was best to put these on ahead of time so they could be slipped on over the ends of the pipes instead of having to bend them open and force them on later. I decided to do a practice run on raising the hoops because I wasn't real sure how well that was going to go, and I found out that the forks on my Bobcat would not lift the hoops high enough. So I fabricated a sort of a boom lift out of a long pipe that would attach to the fork of the Bobcat to help us get them up that high. I drove the Bobcat while the rest of the crew carried each hoop in and set it in place. I had one person on each side post to guide the hoop down onto the post, and another person holding on to ropes that we tied to the ends of the hoop to help control the side-to-side swing. The girls on the sides did have to use rubber mallets to sort of help drive the hoops down onto the post, but for the most part they all went on very easily. I did a lot of the work on this job myself, but when it came to raising the hoops and then eventually putting the plastic on, it was very important to have a good crew, and I had a great crew. From start to finish, this whole job took me right at 1 year. It took that long because I did a lot of the assembly all by myself, but also I had a lot of bad weather throughout that year, and then there was also a fair amount of procrastination on my part as well. I think it's reasonable that a person could build this in a couple of months, or even a couple of weeks if you had all the right equipment and a lot of experienced people to help you. I am not a trained construction person, but I would consider myself to be a decent craftsman or to have a decent mechanical aptitude. I'd say like most farmers probably have. So you'll have to judge your own skills to decide whether or not to take on a project like this. Because of all the rain and the mud, I had to keep the Bobcat handy to pull the truck out of the mud on several occasions. Since the peak of the high tunnel was about 18 feet off of the ground, I had to use a 12-foot step ladder in the back of the flatbed truck in order to install the center purlins and some of the roof bracing. The kit I bought came with everything I needed for the framing of the high tunnel except for the wood. I had to buy the lumber for the hip boards and the base boards that you see in these pictures, as well as all the lumber for the end walls. Also, there really were no instructions for constructing the end walls. That was sort of left up to you as to how you wanted them configured. I built the end walls out of cedar 2x4s, and I dug holes for the bottoms of the boards and set them in concrete. Here you can see the pulleys and the guide ropes for the side wall curtains, which can be raised and lowered. As part of the kit, I bought a set of steel double doors for one end, and for the other end I just made 2 doors myself out of 2x4s. By far the most challenging part of this whole project was putting on the plastic film. My wife Stephanie and I were able to put the end wall plastic on by ourselves, but when it came to the plastic for the roof, we definitely were going to need a lot of extra help. So we brought the hoop raising crew back along with a couple of other people. Right about the time we started to put that plastic up on the roof, the wind picked up, and it was quite a challenge, so we did not get any video of that work in progress. So after about a year's worth of work, I'm really happy with the result. I would say the job was fairly physically demanding for the most part, and it does require a good amount of carpentry and mechanical skills, and certainly having access to a lot of tools and equipment was a big plus. I hope you found this video helpful, and I wish you the best of luck in building your high tunnel. Thanks for watching.